mission simulator.
Yes. Well, it just goes back to this aspect of seeking anything for titillation, for sensationalism. They made a great deal of the fact that this one of the pilots had a flight simulator in his home.
The pilot,
and he was practicing emergency landings. Well, so what? I'm not a pilot, but I have friends who are pilots, and they have flight simulators in their home, and they say any self-respecting pilot is going to be practicing things all the time.
You see, that makes perfect sense to me.
Yes. And yet they were trying to find something sinister. Now, is it possible that he had something sinister? Yes. But do they have any proof?
Nope.
No, they don't.
No.
And that's what bothers me about the sensationalizing. And then, of course, you turn to the theological side of it. Pardon me. And you have all these prophecy experts. They're pointing to this, and they're pointing to that, and they're pointing to an earthquake here. See, for instance, in Oklahoma City, we had a 4.3 earthquake yesterday. And we have prophecy experts assuring us that these earthquakes, I know of probably 4, maybe 5 earthquakes that we've had in Oklahoma. You don't exactly think of Oklahoma as earthquake center of the world, but I know of at least 4, perhaps 5 that we've had right here in the last year or so. And so we've had some, quote, local, unquote, prophecy experts say, see, this is it. This is proof that we're in the end days. And it's that type of paranoia, that type of fear-mongering that my ministry is seeking to dispel. I am a firm believer in the fact that history repeats itself in one form or another, that human nature never changes. What's interesting to me, I did a study of this years and years ago, Rob. I did a study of the book of Amos. The book of Amos was written somewhere around the 8th century BC. So, I mean, we're talking a long time ago, right?
Yes.
We're talking 2,700 years ago. There were 10 sins, or 10 societal problems, military issues, sexual immorality, political corruption, military corruption. 10 of them that I documented that Yahweh accused Israel, the 10 northern tribes specifically, of being guilty of there in the 8th century BC. Just as an exercise in fun, I picked up my local newspaper at the time, and by the way, I did this in the mid-'80s, and you could do the same thing today. I documented those exact same issues being discussed in the newspaper of the 1980s. Now, does that mean that the 1980s were the countdown to Armageddon? Well, Hal Lindsey assured us it was, but of course he was wrong. But it was just a really, really powerful example to me of how human nature does not change. You know, here's Amos, here's Micah, here are some of these ancient prophets talking about how children were being disrespectful to their parents.
Right.
Oh, wow. That's new, right?
Unreal.
And political corruption. Oh, my. We've never seen that before, like we're seeing it in America, and I'm sure you got plenty of it in Canada as well. Yep. So, yeah, we've never seen this kind of stuff. Well, if you claim that, then you've never read history. It always amuses me, Rob, when people say, you know, we've got to be in the last days because there's never been a time as corrupt, never been a time as immoral, never been a time as unjust as the days in which we're living. I said, wait a minute, have you ever read Tacitus? Well, most people, unfortunately, have never read Tacitus. Have you ever read Suetonius? No. Have you ever read Dio Cassius? No. Have you ever even read Josephus? No, don't even know who those guys are. Well, okay. Josephus, Jewish historian, who wrote somewhere around the early 90s, but he was an eyewitness to the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70. He was there with Titus, the Roman general, in the siege of Jerusalem. He chronicled all of that. But one of the things that I ask people when they say, we must be living in the last days, because look at all the famine, look at all the earthquakes, look at everything around us. And yes, there are disturbing things going on. I don't deny that. I'm not a Pollyannish, type of person. Everything's sunshine and roses. I understand the tragedies that are taking place. The question is, are those the fulfillment of prophecy? And no, they are not. And so I ask people when they make this comment, we're living in the worst time ever was. And I say, well, have we ever had a president that publicly homosexually raped anyone? And they go, what are you talking about? I said, well, you say that we're living in the worst times ever, and I'm just asking you, have we ever had a president do that? Well, absolutely not. That's just such an abhorrent idea. I said, well, that's true. It is an abhorrent idea. But Nero, the emperor of Rome, did that.
Exactly.
And I just posed some questions about, have we ever had a president who attends a banquet of senators, takes the wife of one of the senators into a back room and rapes her? And excuse me, folks, for being graphic here, but these are the kind of questions we need to ask ourselves if we think we're living in the worst of times. Takes this senator's wife into a back room, rapes her, comes out, and then describes blow by blow to the entire assembly in the front of the husband what he did to this woman. And then because the husband got outraged at it, he killed the husband on the spot. We ever had anything like that? Wow, no. Well, Caligula did that. And once you look at what life was like in the first century, the world in which Paul walked, the rule under which he had to live, the immorality. We talk about how bad slavery was in America, and believe you me, it was. And I'm one of the most outspoken critics of racial discrimination and bigotry. I just deplore it on every level. But if you would have lived in the first century, you would have seen a level of lack of human dignity probably unparalleled, or at least on a scale far, far greater and far, far worse than anything that we had in America, as tragic and horrible as it was in America during the heyday of slavery in America. Most people are not aware of the fact that in Rome, and in other cities of Rome as well, if you had a slave that you didn't like, you could go down to the public square, and they had businesses set up that you could hire them. You could say, okay, my slave Andronicus, I don't like him anymore. He's not very useful anymore. So how much? And they would tell you, well, it'd be so many drachmas. And you would pay them the drachmas. They would go to your house. They would pick up Andronicus. They'd take him out, and they would kill him, and they would burn his body. Andronicus could not do one thing about it.
Unreal.
They had a field in Rome itself and in different cities around the Roman Empire. If you didn't like your baby, and a baby wasn't even recognized as a human being until it was born, and that wasn't even its personhood, but until the father. Mother had no part in this. That shows you a little bit of the tragedy of the first century world. The mother gave birth, but until or unless the father took that child and held that child up and dedicated it to the gods, that child was not recognized as a human being. Now, we have forces in America that really would like to do that and return to that type of barbarity. But we don't have that yet, and I hope we never get to that point. And if you didn't like a child, if the father never recognized the child, they would take the child. In most cases, by the way, it was a female child. They would take that child out, lay it down in a field, walk off, or they'd take it down to the local coastline, toss it in the ocean, and walk off. Now, that's a wonderful world to live in. And, of course, if you laid the baby down, female baby down in the field, the procurers of houses of prostitution would come and raise this female child, and she would be a slave in a house of prostitution all of her life until her usefulness was over, and then they would put her out on the street where she would become a beggar, a pauper, and probably die of some venereal disease anyway. So I'm just simply pointing out, Rob, I hope it hasn't been too graphic for the audience, but I could just keep going on and on and on about how horrific the first century world was. And yet none of those things were said by Jesus to be signs of the end.
I don't think the world is going to end yet. I think that we still have a lot of wonderful work to do in it, Dr. Don, and I'm glad you do the work that you do.
Well, I'm so excited, Rob. I've heard from so many people, even though I've had to be out of the office due to sickness and tragedy of death in the family, check my emails and what have you. And I've just been getting emails from around the world of people discovering the message that we're sharing, that we're not in the last days. You know, Armageddon's not just around the corner. The Antichrist is not alive somewhere in Europe or wherever today and about to sign a peace treaty with Israel, and then we're going to have this horrific great tribulation. No. All of those were first century events, and most of it was given in highly metaphoric, figurative language that was never intended to be taken literally. And my dispensational friends, and I mean that quite sincerely, I have wonderful friends who are dispensationalists who believe all of that with all of their heart, but dispensationalists have done the world an incredible disservice.
Dr. Don, stand by, my friend. You and I have to take our final break for this hour. What a guy. Dr. Don K. Preston is our special guest this hour, Exonation. Visit his website at www.bibleprophecy.com. That's www.bibleprophecy.com. By the way, the telephone number for Radio on Telephone is 213-401-0080 724-365. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break. Don't go away. With each new extreme weather event or terrorist act, it becomes increasingly obvious that we live in uncertain and challenging times. We all buy car insurance. Why not collapse and catastrophe insurance? Matthew Stein, an MIT-trained engineer and green builder, has written 2 outstanding books to help people prepare, plan for, and deal with everything from minor situations lasting a few days to full-on collapse. Matt's first book, When Technology Fails, is a manual for self-reliance, sustainable living, and surviving the long emergency. This massive book covers the gamut from first aid and emergency preparedness to alternative healing, renewable energy, primitive living skills, and 18th century technologies that could be critical to your comfort and survival in a long-lasting crisis. Matt's second book, When Disaster Strikes, is a comprehensive emergency preparedness handbook and survival guide. When Disaster Strikes is an essential item for every family's go bag. Both books are available at all usual sources. There's a wealth of totally free information posted at whentechfails.com, and author-signed copies may be purchased at mattstein.com. That's www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Exonation, Dr. Don K. Preston is our special guest this hour. His website is www.bibleprophecy.com. Dr. Don, why do so many people in today's society